Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Big Vision TV, and I am with my good friend Ren Behan. And we've got slight technical difficulties here because Ren can't actually see her screen. I can see her perfectly, so I believe this is broadcasting perfectly. So I'd just love a quick comment just to make sure that you can see us both. Okay, so let me introduce Ren very quickly. Now, I've known Ren for many years now. Ren actually came to it wasn't one of my first, it was my first vision board workshop, my very first one. Here in my home, in my living room, Ren sat and made a vision board, and we've become friends and worked together ever since, really. And I've loved watching Ren's journey grow and evolve. Now, yesterday we had breakfast together, and it was lovely to catch up. And we also, I talked a bit more about Ren's story, some aspects which I didn't actually know, which I would love her to share. So I've titled this broadcast From the Courtroom to the Kitchen, because Ren actually, I'll hand over to Ren. Ren, just introduce it. Hello. This is Ren.
Great technology gremlins. I can't see anything, so I'm imagining that I'm just having a really nice telephone conversation with you. If there's any comments or questions, hopefully somebody will be able to see them, and we can both answer them. But I'm really privileged to be your second guest, and I've got huge boots to fill after seeing Casper's broadcast last week. I have to say, nothing quite as amazing as travelling around the world.
But you know what? Traveling around the world isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it's not about kind of great big changes like that. But my intention for this show is to show people that you can make changes in your life, but a big change, like changing a career that you've kind of found yourself in. You didn't grow up thinking, I want to be a criminal lawyer when I grow up, did you, Ren? You kind of...
No, probably not. No, I only became a criminal lawyer because, I was explaining yesterday at breakfast, by default, because I had actually signed up on a graduate recruitment program for British Airways, and I was hoping to use my languages. I was hoping to travel, and it didn't work out because of actually, unfortunately, September the 11th. So the program didn't run, and I was almost forced to make a very, very quick decision. And the decision I made was to go and sign up and do postgraduate in law, using the redundancy money that I had been given. So I started off not doing what I expected to do. I did love the law. I was a good lawyer, and I did lots of work experience whilst I was at university with a criminal law firm. And I sort of embraced the change that had been kind of thrust upon me unexpectedly. And I did law for a few years until I became a mother.
Yes, and motherhood does have a big impact on all women, obviously. These little people come along, but it makes you reevaluate everything. You don't quite realize the impact that these children are going to have on you until they come. And or you don't realize that you're such a control freak that you don't want to give your kids away to anybody else.
But no, we both, my husband and I, had quite big full-on careers. So I think it would have meant either neither of us seeing the children, or us kind of seeing them, or very sporadically, or not seeing each other. And but I think things were even different 10, 11 years ago than they are today. There's more flexibility now in employment. There is more support out there. So I can't say for certain I would make the same decisions again that I made, 10, 11 years ago. But what I would say is that, for me, for our family, we made a decision that suited us at the time. I didn't know at the time I would go on to have 3 little angels. But, everything, we evaluated all the way through what we were doing and what we wanted for our family. And that just happened to be our decision that I would sort of be at home and be there for them, and in those early years. So that's why I stepped away from the law. I probably still miss it a bit. I'm never say never, but I think finding yourself in a different or in an unusual situation, I think, can often be the catalyst to making a change, because and in many ways, it's a good opportunity, isn't it? Because I think if you've got a period of maternity leave or an extended period of leave, apart from being massively overwhelmed by everything going on around you and even just keeping on top of things, you know, it can be, a lot of people find it's a good creative opportunity to look into doing something new, a new hobby. I volunteered a lot. That's how I met Lisa. I don't know if Lisa's watching, but we did a lot of stuff through the NCT. So yeah, I think those times when you're away from the daily grind of a 9 till 5 is often a good time to sit back and say, actually, what would I like to do and what can I do that fits in with my life as it is now?
And obviously, you know, I've given this description in as to what this broadcast is about. So again, like last week, I gave the game away. You know, you then turned your hand to food blogging. Why food, Ren? You know, what was
why food? Food Ren. That's one of my handles. Why? Well, because I think I had always had an interest in food and cookery. You know, I was brought up in a foodie household. We loved and appreciated a good celebration, and still do. And you know, I remember sort of thinking to myself, okay, if I had to just pick one topic to write about, what would it be? And I started off by doing a creative writing course just at a local college, and you know, enjoyed it. I would also ask for things like cookery school vouchers, you know, instead of birthday gifts or Christmas presents, or I'd save up. And so I went along. I remember doing kind of a cupcake decorating class. I did a day with at the Manoir with Raymond Blanc, you know, so that I was already sort of thinking, yeah, food is something that I'm quite interested in. I had at that point two children at home, and I think it's that moment of thinking that this could all start to feel like a bit of a chore in a minute. This, you know, religiously following Annabelle Carmel and making individual ramekins of things, you know, and just stressing myself out. So I think I was thinking to myself, this is either going to become a chore, or I could make something of it, and you know, and embrace, you know, the situation I'm in. And I do remember clearly thinking, yeah, you know, if I had to pick one topic, it would be food. And that led me to start researching. And I just looked and did an online diploma in food journalism because it sounded interesting. I thought, you know, it would be a good thing to do from home, you know, while the baby was napping or of an evening, whatever. I didn't know how I was going to fit it in. I just thought, let's have a go. Nothing to lose, as it were. And it was that diploma in food journalism that, you know, should have taken 6 to 8 weeks that then took 2 years, because the first bit of homework that I was given in module 1 was to start a food blog. And it was very much a kind of, this is what you're going to do for your first piece of homework. This is where you're going to write. This is where you're going to start connecting with people. And so that's why it happened, you know, that I took the diploma in food journalism.
Yeah. And what year was that? Can you remember, Ren?
So yeah, the food blog started in November 2010. Okay. So, you know, it was dark, it was grey, it was miserable outside. I remember, you know, how it looked, you know, the early days of my food blog. And I remember just thinking, you know, this is my little space. This is my space for me, my corner of the internet, where I'm going to write about nice things and hopefully find ways of being a bit more creative.
And did you have a big vision for this blog at the time? Did you have any inkling as to where this food journey was going to lead you?
I had no vision for the blog. The best sort of bit of advice that I was given in the early days was that my tutor had said to me, when you're choosing a domain name, she said, choose your name, because she said, inevitably you can call your blog whatever you're going to call it, but people will remember you for being you. And so I did buy at that time renbehan.com, and the blog at the time was called Fabulicious Food. But I do remember having a quote by Julia Child, and the quote said, you know, find something that you're interested in and keep tremendously interested in it, you know. And that's the thing, it's that, you know, I was interested in food, and I did think that I could write about it and have new things to say. So it started off very organically, very you know, as just a bit of, that was my homework task. And, you know, little did I know really that hitting publish back in 2010 would lead me, you know, really to where I am today. So no, it wasn't planned. It wasn't a big vision at that time at all. It was literally find a way of being a bit more creative and doing something from home that would fit in around the children.
Okay, and great. So take us a little bit more down kind of that journey. You know, obviously doors started to open. Did you actively go knocking at them, or did opportunities just come your way?
Yeah, a lot of things happened literally by chance, because I'd go along to an event and I'd meet somebody, and it might have been that I met an editor, or I met somebody from who was looking for freelance stuff, or it would always be kind of, I would sort of by chance I would meet somebody that things began. But I think that's when I kind of had met you as well, and I did start to put things on my vision board, people I wanted to write for.
I remember that first vision board.
Yeah, and I stuck pictures on literally of publications that I wanted to see my recipes featured in, or my work featured in. So there was at that point, there was a bit more thought process going on behind what I was doing. But very much opportunities were just sort of coming my way, and I was picking them up and fitting them in and doing things, creating recipes for brands as and when I could, and I upped my game a bit, and this is the thing, I think I invested in myself. I taught myself how to use my camera properly. I upgraded my blog eventually. I think there were definitely moments when I thought to myself, I never cruised it. I did have my foot down on the pedal for quite a lot of it, thinking I wanted it to be better, or I wanted to be better, or I wanted to improve in some way.
At what point were you starting to kind of like monetize and think, actually, do you know what? Perhaps I could make a living out of this. Do you remember? Was there a moment?
Monetize is a big word, and especially in the blogging industry, as it happens, I've never carried adverts on my blog. I've never kind of looked upon my blog as a way to make money. For me, it's always been, a creative space to share what I'm doing. And I think that the way that the money started to come in was that I would ask to I'd be asked to create recipes for brands, or I'd be asked to create a piece of content. For example, as a features writer for Jamie Oliver for a few years, and I did work for BBC Good Food and UK TV Food and Great British Chefs and a few things like that. And I think once I realized that people were starting to approach me to create things for them, I would sort of say, yeah, that would be great. Is there a budget for any of this? And, they would come back and offer. And over time, obviously, I then refined what I thought my time was worth. And that's how it grew. Very much that's how it grew into a business.
I love it. And I think for anyone listening at the moment,
is anyone listening? I can't see any.
Yeah, no, there are people watching. Sorry, I knew she'd have to interrupt.
Oh, we've got Bitsy. That's good. Bitsy's watching and listening. Hello, Bitsy.
Hello, Bitsy. Right, I can't kill her on live TV, but never mind. So lost my train of thought. Episode. Yes, people watching. Yeah, no, people watching. I want people to kind of start thinking, particularly people who may be kind of in that, career that they're not particularly happy in, that they perhaps could start something like a blog on the side. And it's not a case of, right, okay, ditch the career today and let's just blog full time. Or even perhaps, as we said, having a baby, becoming a mother is a big catalyst for change. That period could be used, that is a really good opportunity to come think, well, what could I do? What could I do differently right now? This is, this is where I want to get people to start thinking, what's possible?
What's possible? Yeah. I certainly think that the biggest barrier to people creating change, and certainly what I understand the biggest barrier to be, is two things really. A, I have no time. I haven't got time, to start something new or a new hobby. And B, it's when the fear kicks in. Oh, but it's already been done before, or I haven't got anything new to say. So I remember reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, who I was fortunate to see on Monday evening give a talk in London. And
great book.
amazing book, and it unlocked certainly this thing within me that I thought, I haven't got anything new to say, or I haven't, you know, all these sort of fears that we carry around, these little anxieties that we have in our heads. It's about sort of facing them head on and saying, okay, you think you've got no time. And this is what Elizabeth Gilbert was saying early on in her career, you know, and she was asked by one of her mentors, you know, do you watch TV? Do you watch anything on Netflix? Do you read magazines? Do you read books? Great. You know, it's great that you do, but it shows you've got some time. You know, it might not be a lot of time. Do you sit on Facebook and browse, you know, for an hour a day or a week? You know, there is time. There is always time to be more creative. And so time is the one thing that people, you know, need to get over, this concept of we don't have enough time to pursue our passions.
Yes.
And the second thing is, just about making big leaps. I think that, and again, Elizabeth Gilbert sort of said she doesn't advocate that anybody just leaves one job and goes and pursues this creative life. It's not about that. You know, she actually said that, you know, she wrote, I think, 4 novels before the big one, before Eat, Pray, Love. And in that time, you know, as she was writing 4 novels, she had loads of jobs. She was bartending, she was working, you know, in a restaurant, she was, you know, doing all sorts of jobs to keep herself going financially, so that she could then, you know, find a way of living her dream. And I think that it's very important that people acknowledge that we can't just leap from one thing to the next. There has to be an element of planning. There has to be an element of finding ways of making it happen. So, time is one thing to kind of tackle, and fear our fears. You know, am I really good enough to do this? What have I got to say that's any good? And I think for me, the big moments came when I was asked to judge in 2014. I think I was asked to judge the Cookery Book of the Year award, and 150 cookery books turned up at my house over a period of weeks, and they took over the whole living room, and I kind of, you know, absorbed myself into this process of judging these books. Now, I was already in that world. I was already writing. I was already a member of the Guild of Food Writers. I was always kind of, you know, already sort of living that life, as it were. But I looked around me at this pile of books, and I remember sort of thinking, there's a pile here written by famous people, celebrity chefs. There's books that are linked to restaurants. There are books that are linked to ingredients, you know, red pepper cookery book or whatever was there. And there were books that were linked to cuisines and countries. And I remember looking at the pile and just thinking, it's great that we've got Italy and France and Mexico and Thailand coming through, but what about lesser known cuisines? What about Eastern European food? And for me at the time, that's when I started to think about weaving my own heritage into things a bit more, and finding ways of just starting to tell that story. And I think that it's finding either a gap or finding a place that you think, you know, you could add something to that. And certainly things that haven't been done before. You know, everything's been done before, but as Elizabeth Gilbert would say, it hasn't been done by you, you know. So
and I remember you were quite resistant for a long time about writing a cookbook, weren't you? I remember kind of thinking, come on, Ren.
Well, I was resistant. I personally wasn't resistant, but it possibly wasn't the right time in the industry to write a book on Polish food. And, you know, and still, you know, admittedly, it's niche. It's an unknown cuisine. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work that I'm still doing to convince people or to kind of change people's perceptions of you know, Eastern European food. But this, for me, was part of the authenticity that I think you need when you're following a dream or following a passion. And, you know, let's mention the royal wedding that, you know, we all enjoyed at the weekend, and this lovely way that Meghan was able to weave her African American background into the ceremony. And I think, we did that at our wedding. You know, we had an English wedding cake, a Polish wedding cake. We had English music. We had Polish hymns. I was already living a version of that in my own life. I was already proud to be British and proud to be Polish. And so for me, writing a cookery book on Polish food seemed like a logical thing to do. It seemed like a totally normal thing to do. It didn't seem like an odd thing to be writing about. And it was only when I started to bring these ideas to the surface and allow these ideas to come up to the surface that people were saying, actually, this is quite interesting, and we would like to know a bit more about what Polish food is about. So again, I wouldn't say I kind of, stumbled across and fell into this, whole realm of Polish food that I write about so much now, because it was already part of my life and it did seem totally normal to me. But what I realized was that there were not a lot of people writing about it, or that, in fact, I did have something new to say.
Oh gosh, sorry. We talked. So you actually did a broadcast with me, which I think if you go back through my Facebook page and the video's still there during the time of your launch. But it was so exciting to see this book. It's like bringing another baby into the world, wasn't it?
It was. Felt that way.
There's quite a long gestation period as well, and I remember you showing me kind of bits along the way, and it was just so exciting to see it come together. But the book itself is incredible. So it's called Wild Honey and Rye, available in all.
Can I show people? I have a copy here.
Yes. I was just thinking, damn, my copy's in the kitchen.
No, it matches my orange top.
And so. Can you talk a little bit how the visioning process did bring the book to life?
Yeah, so I mean, I did, at some point, obviously in the journey, start to think about the fact that I might like to write a book, or I could write a book. I could find the time to write a book. And I think there was certainly a vision board. There was actually a vision board that I created where I stuck a picture of a pot of honey onto the board and a loaf of rye bread. Now, I know that sounds crazy because the name of the book is Wild Honey and Rye. And so I envisaged, in a way, the name of the book. But I think, I already had an idea of what I would like it to be called. So the visualization process was more of a kind of, let's put this down on paper. Let's start to live this idea. This is what I was talking about before.
I think that about the living it. We've got
absolutely.
To live
it's very
that
important.
Person, be that person. Yeah.
You do. You have, because, like you shared a video this morning where, you might sort of create a vision board and somebody might stick a red Ferrari on there. And I think to myself, that's great. That's a really nice aspiration to have. But the question that I would sort of say to myself was, have you been ever sat in a Ferrari? Have you worked out whether you would be suited to it? Maybe you would get in and find it too low or too tight or whatever. Have you worked out even how much it costs? Have you made the inquiry? Have you been along to see? I think a lot of people might stick a picture on, but not actually have a connection to it in any way. And the bottom line is, if you suddenly came into £400,000 by whatever means, would you actually hop down to that Ferrari garage and buy the red Ferrari? Or would you perhaps buy another car that was more suited to your lifestyle? Or would you buy, something else? So I think the point I'm making is that when you put something onto, a vision board, it is so much more than just gluing and sticking a picture down. You have got to commit in some way to the idea that is on that board. You've got to be living some idea of it already. And people do make big leaps. We've seen, in the group that Lisa, for instance, has made, manifested a big leap, a move for her daughters into a new school, into a new county, into a new place. But you can bet your bottom dollar there would have been some research going on there. Where are those schools that I think my children would be happier at? So for me, it was kind of like, okay, what are the sort of books that I like? How are they structured? What would I like my book to embody and to encompass? What would be in it? And at that point, I started planning out. I started writing draft chapters. And that very much became part of the kind of whole writing a proposal for a cookery book. But I do think there is an element of things that go onto your board. It's almost be careful what you wish for, you know, because you have to be committed to the idea and you have to put it out there completely wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be ready for it if it happens, you know.
And
great
something else we discussed earlier was the whole, you know, sometimes people can get impatient about the changes that they want to take place. You know, we see all these other incredibly successful people doing whatever they do in their, you know, in their fields of expertise, authors, whatever. These people who seemingly have it all, but you and I both know is not an overnight thing.
No, I don't believe in really that there is any such thing as an overnight success. If you take any successful person and really analyze their lives, you will probably see that there have been some steps that they've made in order to get themselves there. Short of literally a lottery win, but in order to do that, of course, you've still got to go and buy a ticket. You know, short of that, you know, if you see anybody, reality TV stars, somebody on Big Brother, somebody taking part in Great British Bake Off or whatever, you know, they've still filled out the application form. They've still researched that step, that journey. So nothing just really happens. Things happen because people take action. And the question that I always ask myself for anything that I try and achieve in life is there anything happening in my life that's giving me an indication that I am getting there? Are there any signs at all? You know, because if there aren't, then it's usually a good indication it's not meant to be, it's not for you. But if there are some signs and there are doors opening up, or perhaps, you know, for me, it was meeting a literary agent, again, totally by chance at an event, an awards evening. And just, you know, remember Heather saying to me, what do you do? What do you write about? And I said, oh, well, I've got this big idea of writing a Polish cookery book. And she said, that sounds wonderful. That sounds brilliant. Let's do it. You know, it's ready to go. It's in you. And that was a sign, you know, but I think you have to be able to look for the signs. And
I love it when the signs are that obvious and that blatant.
Yeah, I mean, that's an obvious sign. But, you know, another sign could be, I know people have put things on their vision boards, and I have done it where, you know, you might put a holiday on there and then a brochure comes through the door, or you walk past a big display and you'll see, you know, the destination on there. There are ways of looking out for little signs that tell you you're on the right path. And I like to think of things of it as moving towards something versus moving away from something. Being drawn to things, and then little things happening that give you an indication that, yeah, that's a good thing. That would be a good thing in your life. There's no point, you know, dreaming up or thinking up something that is so massively out of reach that you're only going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
it's the incremental moves that you can make towards making your big dreams happen that I think that's, for me, that's where the magic lies. And actually, just mentioning Elizabeth Gilbert once more, but she said that the best part for her in her book writing process is the bit before anything goes anywhere. You know, the moment when it's just your idea and nobody has hold of it, nobody can take it and change it or edit it, or, you know, it's just that the most magical moment is when you've got hold of something that you think, yes, this is what I really want. And if you can acknowledge those tiny moments in your life, I think that's, you know, almost in a way better than achieving it.
Yeah,
completely.
I think so. Those little ideas for me, they'd be like hits of inspiration. And so Mel Robbins has talked about when you're hit by inspiration, there's a 5-second rule where you've got to do something about it. Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic talks about, again, you've got to do something about it. And many of us, we have these big ideas and these things that we want to do, and we just we sit on it and we
procrastinate.
For a moment get excited about it, but then I would say for 99.9% of us, we just let that idea just float off into the ether. And as Elizabeth Gilbert says, somebody else will catch it. Somebody else will catch that idea.
Yeah, they do float off, and that's fine. And it does happen, and it might not mean that it was meant for you. But if you've got an idea and you think it's a good one, then you absolutely do grab it with both hands and take steps daily, if necessary, to try and put the wheels in motion to try and make it happen. You put it out there, but you've got to be willing to do the work to make things happen.
So what would be your advice for somebody with that idea? Because obviously that happened to you, but then, so people sitting there and think, well, actually, I've got this idea to do this, but I really just don't know what to do with it. So actually, that leads us to one of the questions here. So Johnny's asked the question, sorry. I want to write a chocolate confectionery sweets cookbook. What advice can you give me on where to start?
Can't wait for that one, Johnny. It's research. It is looking at what is already out there. Start to research authors who have already written, chocolate books. Literally going on Amazon, look at new titles, things that are coming out. It gives you an idea of kind of trends and what people are interested in. But plan it out, really don't wait for that big tap on the shoulder to say, we want you to write a book. Sit down and get a pen and paper or get your laptop and say, okay, I'd like a chapter on individual sweets. I'd like a chapter on chocolate cakes. I'd like a chapter on how to temper chocolate. I'd like a chapter on how to, mold with chocolate. Write down what you would have in there. That to me would be a good thing to do at the beginning of any journey. Map it out, and that tells the universe that you are really serious about it. That you really do think you could put pen to paper and write a great book. And I'm sure Johnny will write a great book about chocolate. Research what's already out there, and don't be afraid of your competitors. Say, here's a great book by X, Y, and Z, and it's sold in these territories and it's doing really well, and here's what I can bring to the table. I embraced things that were already out there, and I had very straight up conversations with literary agents, with publishers, to say, this is already out there, but this is what I would like to do. And it's differentiating yourself. So that is a first step. That is a first step.
And I think many of us fear the competition. We kind of think, well, if so-and-so's done it already, then why should I even bother? And I think that's so sad.
It's true. And I think it's, competitive titles and complementary titles. Where would your cookbook sit in a shop? Who would it sit next to? And that's the classic thing about, my book is a book of modern Polish recipes. And I found it in the Middle East section. I found it next to a Brazilian cookbook, and you think, no, that's, it's a thing on its own. It's Eastern European food, which is not very well recognized, but it's, slowly but surely I'm seeing those sections in the bookshops get bigger, and there's more voices being added all of the time. So it is literally going to a bookshop and saying, where would my book sit here? And that is part of the process of visualizing it and of making things happen.
Yeah. So I want to ask you now, Ren, because I know we're a little bit pushed for time. Now, a lot of people would kind of see as a publication of a cookbook as being, right, that's it. I've achieved my big vision. That's the pinnacle. But one thing that really struck me yesterday, and we both just kind of said, no, this is just the beginning. So what's next, Ren?
What's next? Well, in September, our youngest will go to school. So finally, I'll have, a reasonable amount of time to do some work. I have recently opened up the doors to a mentoring academy that I've set up to help people, take action and move forwards and start to kind of have a bit more support, as it were, for ideas that they might have. I don't want to call myself a coach or a teacher or anything like that, but I do think people need support, and I get so many questions every day. I always email and try and help people wherever I can, but it's nice for me to have a group atmosphere where I can sort of share my knowledge and have people, have a safe space to share big ideas and dreams and find ways of making them happen. So
and this is not just for aspiring authors. Who else is this for?
Oh gosh, no, I've got product-based businesses in there. I've got women in business who've started their own businesses, who want to grow their businesses. I have got a couple of lovely food bloggers from around the world, from Canada, from Australia. So I've got lots of, it's a great mix already, you know, in the early days of people who, you know, it's called enrich. And the point is, I don't want people to feel drained by what they do. I want them to feel enriched and inspired by what they do. And it's finding ways, finding tools of feeling, you know, a bit more inspired or a bit more enriched. So that's what we're doing in the group. But yeah, I'm sure that, you know, I'd like to keep writing. I've got my first big demo at River Cottage on Saturday on stage. So there's always moments that push me, that challenge me. And, you know, you just have to kind of embrace those challenges and do the best you can.
So Lisa's just put there the link for the Enrich Academy.
Thank you, Lisa.
Go and check that out.
Yeah, the doors are open, you know. It's just a good way for me to connect with people, because somebody said to me once, you know, if you achieve any bit of your goals or dreams, if you're in the lift and the lift is going higher, hit the button, press it and send it back down and help people if you can.
I love that.
And so I don't know who said that, but you know, that's my ethos, is that if I can help somebody, I will. It's totally not about, you know, me, I've written a book, here's what I can do, here's what I can achieve. It is about allowing people, you know, to have that belief that they could do something, you know, equally fun and enjoyable. Creative.
So what kind of final words of wisdom would you have for somebody? And I know we kind of touched on this, but just, you know, that final kind of push, you know, yes, we have the fear, you know, other people are doing this, who's going to want to buy my stuff? You know, how do I even get started? Actually, I'd say go and join Rens Academy.
Yeah, no, so my three sort of, and I've got a free guide that I'm willing, you know, very happy to share with people. It's my kind of 3 guiding principles of business. And for me, it's creativity, positivity and productivity. And, you know, productivity doesn't mean being so busy and being so overwhelmed that you just have got no enjoyment left. It's not about overloading at all. In fact, it's about letting go of as many things as possible that don't serve you, in order so that you can learn to become more productive. So,
what things would they be? What sort of things are you talking about? Letting go?
You know, for outsourcing, you know, getting a bit of support, getting a bit of help if you need a bit of help at home. I've got a massive pile of washing if anybody wants to help me with that. You know, are you spending too much time on social media? Have you got too much coming into your inbox? You know, have you got, you know, it's about making room, because you've got to allow ideas to have that space to come to you, because if you're already overwhelmed by everything that's going on in your life, then nothing is going to have the space or the chance to get anywhere near you. So again, and it's similar to what Elizabeth Gilbert says, is that you have to have quite strict boundaries about what you say yes to and what you get involved in, and is it really serving you? And if it isn't, then perhaps let it go. So yeah, productivity for me is all about kind of streamlining, and then having a dedicated hour or 2 a day or a week to really focus on what your big task is of the week.
And I think particularly when you're so busy, you know, you've got your young family, and the business, there are so many little kind of daily obstacles and challenges. And, you know, how do you make the time for this? Because we talked about time being a challenge earlier. How do you make the time to do all this? You
just streamline. You just let go of things that are not, you know, not needed in your day. You just have to find ways, you know, of making room, making time to, you know, to take some action to make things happen. And it's totally possible.
Love it. Possibilities are everywhere. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ren, for joining us. I hope that's kind of inspired some people out there watching just to kind of take some action, take those first steps, maybe kind of check out Ren's program. And
please do.
Yeah.
Well, the blog is renbehan.com. There's loads on there. Easy recipes that you can make, inspiring recipes.
And I was totally inspired by your cookbook. So I must admit, I had no idea what, you know, if you asked me to describe a Polish dish, I couldn't really, but Wild Honey and Rye is a beautifully produced cookbook, amazing. And I am just so honoured and blessed to just, been sharing this journey with you the past 5 years, and I can't wait to see. I've got a massive vision for you, Ren. I always have. Always have.
Well, and it's a big thank you to Pavilion UK, my publishers in the UK, and to Interlink Books, my publishers in the US, for making it happen, really, for being a super amazing creative team and taking the ideas that I had and turning them into such a beautiful book.
Yes, but it was actually all you, Ren. It was all you.
It's never one person. It's always a big team effort.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again.
To everyone that's I can't see any comments or anything.
No,
so
we've seen you perfectly. I've checked it out on my phone. It's all been fine. So
brilliant.
I'll see you all again next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.